Welcome to Opinion Mashup, where results may shock you. Opinion Mashup encourages everyone to freely express their opinion. We don't choose sides or hold any opinion of our own. Our app simply provides a platform for everyone to express themselves. In this first part of our mini-documentary, we're asking your opinion about who should do more to invalidate stereotypes about Africa. A random search online for pictures about Africa often generates stereotypical results. First, there are pictures of exotic animals, which makes sense because the continent is renowned for its vast and unique collection of wildlife. These are often followed by images of the people, communities, cultures, and traditions. Unfortunately, it's also where things usually start to turn unpleasant. The majority of these images capture impoverished, desperate, and heart-wrenching conditions. Many show slums around the outskirts of overpopulated cities, malnourished children, bad roads, dilapidated houses, hospitals, and schools. Other pictures are about ruthless dictators, wars, laughable security forces, or shocking cultural and traditional practices. The simple truth is that these are a fact. These images only exist because such conditions are true across Africa. However, there's another perspective that shows a more positive and uplifting side of the continent, a side that for the most part remains unknown to many around the world, because it is often ignored by mass media, and also barely mentioned online. It is an angle that reveals the continent's rebirth and resilience, a story about communities, and in some cases, entire nations that are redefining what it means to be African. Africa is experiencing a transformation in terms of politics, economy, education, healthcare, information, infrastructure, science, technology, industry, culture, and traditions. According to the 2013 Annual Development Effectiveness Review by the African Development Bank, Africa is now the fastest growing continent in the world. More than 60% of the population is under 25 years old, making Africa the most youthful continent. Most economists believe that this indicates a significant potential for growth. One of the most powerful forces behind the recent transformation is social media. Africans are now able to spread innovation and enlightenment without relying on traditional media, which are often out of touch. Unlike traditional media that often serve as the mouthpiece of dictators, private individuals are now taking to social media to spread critical thinking. Many regimes, cultures, and traditions that have caused entire countries to stagnate or retrogress are now being exposed and are starting to fall apart. Emancipation is on the rise as backward-looking practices are losing ground. The foundations of underdevelopment are shaking, and if this trend continues, the pillars will start to fall. Many communities that are held captive by corrupt, incompetent regimes are increasingly becoming defiant and embracing opportunities for progress. Some achievements are despite the adverse policies and practices of governments. Today, African countries are starting to look unrecognizable from just a few decades ago. However, the question that still remains unanswered is why then does global perception about Africa fail to match the positive transformation? Why do negative stereotypes about Africa persist? Many argue that it is primarily because first impressions are difficult to change. Many have held certain beliefs about Africa and Africans for so long that they seem unable to see things differently. Traditional mass media have not made things better, often choosing to focus more on the continent's woes instead of its achievements. Another deeper explanation goes to the roots of the problem by reviewing human nature and how perspectives evolve over time. It is in our human nature to be fascinated by the new and unusual. Therefore, during the colonial era, visitors to Africa were enchanted by the continent's rudimentary conditions. They traveled from the back then vastly undeveloped Africa to their countries with images and stories about the unusual. Upon return to the West, a mixture of accurate and sometimes grossly exaggerated accounts about Africa were sensationalized. These formed the basis of some of the stereotypes that persist to this day. The immediate post-independence era made things worse for Africa, as ruthless dictators and powermongers pillaged the continent and displaced millions of inhabitants. Their cruel, incompetent, corrupt, and lackluster regimes propagated hardship and underdevelopment. The crises that ensued were publicized by Western media, sometimes with the intent to portray that Africa was better off under colonial rule. This became the standard for post-colonial Africa, which unfortunately reinforced negative stereotypes about its people and cultures. Some first-generation African leaders, such as Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya, Kenneth Kaunda of Zambia, and Amadou Ahidjo of Cameroon, were patriots who fought for their nation's independence. They were focused on nation-building, but unfortunately, these heroes were soon replaced by self-serving imbeciles who put personal gain ahead of national progress. Many of these seriously flawed puppets and dictators enjoyed a cult of personality. They pushed appalling ideologies and administered grossly incompetent regimes. Their authoritarian excesses caused widespread suffering across their nations, thereby engraving perceptions of hardship, misery, and mismanagement. These, coupled with the despondency from slave trade and colonialism, embellished stereotypes about Africa. What captures people's attention is often the new and unfamiliar. For visitors to Africa, these include its exotic wildlife, cultures, and traditions. Some are also attracted to breathtaking incidents of human tragedy, such as wars, genocides, droughts, and famine. There's also the general lag in modern infrastructure, which unfortunately promotes negative perceptions. These account for the overwhelming negative images about Africa online. Africans shouldn't expect this to change anytime soon, because it is human nature to be inspired, shocked, and captivated by the unfamiliar. In recent decades, Africans began pointing out the causes of conflict across the continent. Many observers, including scholars, novelists, poets, historians, and other critical thinkers, began to subtly expose the perpetrators of mayhem in Africa. They pointed out nefarious foreign influence, corrupt schemes, moronic leaders with overinflated egos, and the general lack of will from the masses to challenge the status quo. Many of these obstacles still linger today, including corruption, bad governance, backward-looking cultures, traditions, and practices. The long list of impediments is the premise for unceasing stereotypes, and many people around the world remain oblivious to the progress across the continent. Today, an online search for images about Africa still reveals that the majority is posted by non-Africans, and unfortunately is negative. Until the onset of social media, only a few across the continent had the means to publish their experiences from a purely African perspective. But with the proliferation of smartphones and other personal cameras, including GoPros and drones, things are starting to change. With the newly found power of social media, Africans are starting to attack long-standing obstacles square on. For many, the focus is on corrupt regimes and backward-looking practices. Now that the majority across Africa have smartphones, internet access, and social media accounts, the expectation is for them to start countering stereotypes. The era of complaints is over, as people are now capable of fighting back. All Africans must make it a habit to capture and publicize the continent's positive side. They must counter and eradicate backward-looking customs and traditions. It's time to stop complaining and to take action. People must speak up against excesses. They must challenge, criticize, and inspire others. Educating the global community about the continent's recent progress should be every African's responsibility. Today, many observers conclude that it is finally time for every African to put up or shut up. So here's today's question. In your opinion, who should do more to counter negative stereotypes about Africa? Should it be primarily Africans or everyone else? Please go to opinionmashup.com now and vote. The results are instant, but you must vote in order to reveal the public's reaction. Share the results with your friends on various social media. Join sizzling hot debates in the Opinion Mashup app comment section. Join our focus group. Download the free app today from the Google Play or Apple App Store. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on notifications in order to get instant updates. We're constantly adding new, interesting, and mind-stretching videos. Please remember to hit the like button. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and other social media. As always, remember to keep it real with Opinion Mashup. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.